Hello everyone and welcome back to the Jacksonville Jaguars franchise on Madden 16. Today we're going to do the recap video and just recap this last season and the series as a whole now that it has been complete. The Super Bowl episode has been on my channel for around the week, and now I'm going to wrap things up and get you guys the highlight video along with the Nate Bell highlight video to wrap this up as I move on to new series on Madden 17, including my San Diego Chargers franchise. So, Season 4 resulted in a Super Bowl championship for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We definitely came a long way in this series after a 3-13 Season 1, where the defense was the worst in NFL history if you grade it based on points allowed. And it got a lot better after that with the help of a very promising draft class after Season 1, which included Nate Bell, Nataki Mason, Michael Riley, Stephen Cole, Franklin Fitzgerald. It was easily the best draft class I've ever had on this channel, and it really propelled the rebuilding of this Jaguar team. It could have easily been tougher if we didn't have such a good draft class to start. So what I wanted to do is just show you guys like stats, career stats especially, ratings for players, because I know a lot of times maybe somebody wants to take a player into Madden and play like add them to their team or something like that. So I'll show you guys some ratings and statistics. So we went 11-5 this season. We'll take a look at the schedule quick. It obviously it started off pretty good for us, going 4-0. We've had really good starts to seasons ever since Season 2. And then we have a hiccup here with 2 straight losses to the Eagles and Steelers. I expected the Steelers to be the team we'd have to challenge again this year to make it to the Super Bowl, but I think Big Ben's injury really hurt them, and the Jets ended up taking over the top of the AFC until we eliminated them in the playoffs. And then we had a nice win streak here of 4 games and another one here of 3. And of course the defense, starting with this game right here in week 15. Like these last 3 for the defense weren't very good. I mean, allowing 27 isn't great either. And then in the postseason, didn't get better against the Chargers, but it did against the Jets after Derek Carr left due to injury. And then in the Super Bowl, I thought our secondary played one of their best games in a long time. And against Chase Daniel, they were able to make some plays along with Rolando McClain. So that was the schedule for this year. Let's take a look at some statistics to close this up. Of course, Nataki Mason in his second season as a regular starter did a really nice job. He is so much fun to use. It was weird to see him not be so successful in his rookie season, yet afterwards he became much more accurate and dependable. And we ended up making a lot of big plays with him, and he was very accurate, as you can see, with 67% completion, 8.6 yards per attempt. On the ground, TJ Yeldon had over 1,000 rushing yards all 4 seasons. He had 9 touchdowns on the ground. I know my pick of Calvin Ford didn't really amount to a whole lot in this season, and I expected it to. I thought that he could be a really strong power back for us and get a lot of yards after contact. I want to see his yards after contact compared. Does it show an average? I don't think it does. It shows yards like after first hit, but it doesn't show that per run. But I do think that likely Yeldon has more yards after contact per run. His yards per carry were better, and Yeldon was reliable this year. So I liked using TJ Yeldon. I really wasn't sure at the beginning of this series if I wanted to stick with TJ Yeldon. Obviously, I was going to give him a shot being the best running back on the team, and he kind of ran away with it. And here is Julius Thomas, the big free agent pickup, which we had him at the start of the series. He's had 4,000-yard receiving seasons, and he couldn't have done that without a big Week 17 to close off this season. He had 9 touchdowns. My big signing, Emmanuel Sanders, had 2 very good years. His first was more productive, but in this season we spread the ball around more because we have a good receiving core, and Michael Riley needed some catches as well. So those are the receiving numbers. Really nice job by Marquise Lee, and this actually wasn't his best statistical year. I thought it was, But I think if you were to grade it based on performance, that he might still have, this might have been his best season anyway. Vladimir Mims, 4 catches, 3 touchdowns. Interesting time with him, although very brief. Who gave up the most sacks this year by this count? Brandon Linder and Wisniewski. Lakeith Mason, very up and down. I thought he was better down the stretch. Rolando McClain, big signing for us. Telvin Smith was great the entire way through this series. Reggie Nelson held down free safety for 2 years. Sergio Brown was a free safety at the beginning and then moved to strong safety. Very good in run defense. Let's take a look at sacks, which Dante Fowler's numbers were down this season, but I thought as a team it was better. There was certainly more sack production. Like in Season 3, we only had 2 players over 2.5 sacks, and now we had 6 players more, but Dante Fowler didn't get to his double digits. Interceptions, Reggie Nelson with 5, Nate Bell with 5, Josh Buchanan with 3, Sergio Brown with 2, and Rolando McClain with 1. And in forced fumbles, we had 6 of them this season. D Ford, nice signing for us. That was one that I wasn't sure if he'd even make the team, but ended up being a nice splash player at times. And here are career stats. So obviously, Nataki Mason, all these numbers were in this series as I drafted him. 66% complete. He threw for 70 touchdowns and 32 picks. On the ground, he had 4 rushing touchdowns. TJ Yeldon, 4,937 yards, 41 rushing touchdowns, and 8 fumbles. I think he had 2 in every year. So, great consistency there from TJ Yeldon. Denard Robinson, I think a lot of those stats were in his rookie season, or was it 2 seasons ahead of this franchise? I forget. Then we have receiving numbers, and most of this for Sanders is with Denver and Pittsburgh. And Julius, most of these numbers are actually here in Jacksonville, and he never had a 1,000-yard receiving season in Denver. He had a lot of touchdowns, but not the big yards. Allen Robinson spent, I think, 1 year outside of this franchise in real life for stats. Marquise Lee, same deal. Allen Hurns, same deal. Mike O'Reilly, almost 1,000 yards in his career. Would have been nice to see more of him, which I want to have a much longer franchise with the Chargers to see players I draft really have more of an established career and to get beyond their first contracts, especially. I mean, we've never really seen this on my channel though, but imagine like I can't keep all these great players that I draft and eventually we have to play against them. That's when things can get really interesting to see what they can do if they ever have to play against us. Here are tackle numbers and all that good stuff. Here are sacks. Dante Fowler has 44.5. Of course, he was a rookie to start this series, so all of them in this series. Franklin Fitzgerald had 14. Let's go to INTs. The leader is Reggie Nelson with 29. Nate Bell with 18. So, Nate Bell also had more in the postseason, so a lot of INTs from him. And I think a handful of touchdowns. I forget how many there were. I'll check that in a moment. Let's see. Josh Buchanan had 6 INTs, and Michael Bryan only had 2. I actually thought he had more, but he usually was the guy helping break up passes or hit receivers to make them drop the football, not so much collecting the interceptions. Here are the yearly awards for Season 4 as Aaron Rodgers is your league MVP. There's Nataki Mason at 9th. The Coach of the Year is Todd Bowles as Dominic Carter is down here at 4th. And now we'll go AFC. Le'Veon Bell, Offensive Player of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year is Keenan Robinson. Offensive Rookie goes to DeAndre Russell. We had Calvin Ford here at 5th. It must have been a down year if a guy with like 200 total yards is 5th. Jimmy Buchanan. Alright, Defensive Rookie goes to Johnny Reedy. Best quarterback is Phillip Rivers. Running back, Le'Veon Bell. Marcus Tate's there at 2nd. Yeldon at 6th. We have DeAndre Hopkins as the best wideout. Offensive lineman is DJ Fluker. Defensive lineman, J.J. Watt. Linebacker, Keenan Robinson. Defensive back, Stephon Gilmore. Kicker, Chase Stone. And those are the awards for the... You guys want to see NFC as well? I might as well show those. And then I'm going to show you guys some ratings and whatnot for the players that I have drafted, and maybe show you some yearly stat breakdowns. But I will say, overall, I really enjoyed this series. I thought the gameplay was the best it's ever been in a franchise on my channel, and a lot of that having to do with improved defensive back and wide receiver interactions. And I hope to improve upon that in Madden 17, obviously, and hopefully get better balance in the trenches. But this was a really fun series to just play, and I really enjoyed seeing the sliders really stayed the same throughout this series, but just getting in better players and seeing games dramatically different because we had better players was pretty rewarding to not have to adjust sliders in that case. Why don't we go to the roster now, and we'll take a look at some ratings, and we'll see the yearly stat breakdowns for a handful of players. We'll start with the top overall player, Dante Fowler, who has a 91 finesse move, 87 power. I don't want to go too deep into the stats, that might take too long, but these are the main stats, the key attributes for each of these key players. Why don't we take a look at his breakdown of stats over his 4 years. 7.5 his rookie year, then 16.5 and an INT. Numbers then go down, but 44.5 over his 4 years. That second season was one of my favorite seasons of a series on this channel because the way we were winning games that year, that was the season where we just kept pulling out these wins from nowhere. And Dante Fowler accounted for a couple of those wins on his own with key plays late in games, like I remember against the Titans in that preseason, and I remember when he forced the fumble on Lamar Miller. Fowler's clutch play in this series was really, really enjoyable. Yeah, these were Julius's numbers with Denver, and that got him the big contract where he ended up getting, you know, almost 4,500 yards in 4 years with us, and really good production the entire way. Why don't we move on to Nataki Mason, just to see that breakdown from the years. You can see his accuracy, very good at short and medium, deep still a little bit iffy, but there aren't too many weaknesses in Nataki's game. And here is the breakdown here. The touchdowns went down this year, yards did as well. Did passing attempts? They did by 30, but that's 30 attempts to take away like 560 yards or so, and 8 touchdowns, so that was down this year certainly. Let's go to Franklin Fitzgerald. I always wanted to see players like him have kind of a bigger role in this series, and I think that Fitzgerald was a really good player, but maybe we didn't go far enough in this series to see some of these guys break out. 6 sacks his rookie year, and then it went down and back up in season 3. Where is Nate Bell? There he is. One of the faces of this series. The speedy cornerback who was the very first selection in this series. Where was he drafted again? I know it was the 2nd round. He was pick 2 in the 2nd round. And he ended up being actually Defensive Rookie of the Year. It says Offensive Player of the Year here. He was also a Super Bowl MVP, of course. He was aggressive with the play ball. Not clutch, I would say otherwise. So career stats, 8 interceptions his rookie year, and then 5 in his shortened 2nd year, and 5 in this last season. Very good. One of my favorite players I've ever drafted, and one of the best players I've ever drafted as well. I really enjoy Nate Bell, as you guys already know from all the praising I did of him during the series. Why don't we take a look at Allen Robinson's ratings, and obviously his career trajectory in real life is different than what happened in my series, as he really was just a good number 2 throughout this series. You know, 700 yards, 800 yards, catches in the 60s, an average over a little bit over 10. Like, he had a good role. I did want to see him develop into more of a number 1 receiver, but that never came to be. Who else should we check on here? Let's go with Josh Buchanan was very good. I actually expected that Gordon Solomon might be the star of that class, but Solomon's injury gave Josh Buchanan the chance to play, and I definitely think that his coverage was really inconsistent, but he was also reliable. I wonder how Solomon would have done if he had the same opportunity. Let's see, who else should we show here? Stephen Cole was another really good player that never had a chance to really show what he could do. His ratings are really good. I had so many steals in that first draft, and Cole was just another one of them. I think he was a 5th round selection. Where did I find him? It was a 5th round pick, yes. And here are TJ Yeldon's stats. He's just really solid in every category. His speed isn't going to wow you, but it doesn't have to. His strength and trucking are enough to get yards after contact, and he also has elusiveness, spin, juke, stiff arm. I definitely upped his carrying a lot because his big concern coming out of Alabama was his carrying. And as you see here, he fumbled twice every season. But he also had a lot of touchdowns for us here, almost double digits every season. Yards per carry, not very good in season 3, as he almost managed to miss the 1,000 yard mark. But 1323 here, 1340, 1247, and his yards per carries mostly in those mid 4.0s or mid 4s, other than that 3rd year outlier. And the 20 plus yard rushes were also pretty consistent. So Yeldon was a really good contributor. He caught a lot more passes in that first year because I wasn't trusting the receivers as much and doing a lot of dump offs. So the production in the air was pretty high in his first year, and then it tapered off, especially in his sophomore or his 2nd year. Michael Riley was one of the best backups who could have been a really high quality starter. Whenever he had a chance to play, he really did not disappoint. He didn't have that many catches actually, but he did have 11 touchdowns in regular season play. And I think we all know that Michael Riley, if given the chance, would have been a really good starter for us. And he did well whenever Julius Thomas wasn't on the field. Here is, I think, one of the more underrated players from this series, Marquise Lee. Especially once I drafted Keaton Holliday, seemed to really hang on to that 3rd receiver spot. Although I think I'm underrating perhaps his 2nd season. His catches were up, his yards were up, and his touchdowns. Perhaps I don't remember it that well because I always think that his last season was his best, with all the big plays he made, and how reliable he was as that number 3 receiver who was getting a lot of first downs for us. 662 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now his first year here, this wasn't in the series, so look at 15 and beyond. No touchdowns that rookie year. That was a really, really tough season. That's when I knew I had a pretty good slider set to use, when it was so tough to get points and touchdowns felt very rewarding. Then things got more easier as I got more comfortable within the set and the team got better. And I liked using Marquise Lee. Let's take a look at Keaton Holliday, whom I think could have taken over Emmanuel Sanders' role at some point as that reliable outside receiver who could also play in the slot, great route running, speed, and hands. Keaton Holliday didn't get that much playing time because there weren't a lot of opportunities to unseat the players ahead of him with how good Marquise Lee was playing. I really wanted to see Holliday play more, but when Lee was making the plays he was making, I wasn't going to take him out of the game. So there are Holliday's numbers. Telvin Smith was very consistent as the weak side linebacker on our defense. I gave him a big contract in season 3, and these last 4 seasons here are what he was able to manage in this series. He had almost 500 tackles, he had 3 interceptions, some sack production there as well, as he was usually the first linebacker I would want to be blitzing. Rolando McClain joined the team after season 1 and played outside linebacker next to Paul Posluszny and then inside linebacker when we signed Ryan Shazier, and he was one of our best run defenders and a very reliable tackler, although at the end of season 4, McClain and everybody else seemed to forget how to tackle, but he was also very good in coverage and made some big plays for us in the passing game. I really liked having Sergio Brown in this series. I wasn't sure if he would be a long-term solution for us, but in season 1 it became very clear that his run defense was really good as he picked up 163 tackles. That had a lot to do with our poor front 7 run stopping in front of him and him being the last line of defense. Our safeties made a lot of tackles in this series, and I'm glad he didn't have to make as many as his first season in the series as time went on. Numbers are down here in 2018 because he missed 4 games due to injury. But he also had interception production for us, and I think he was pretty consistent personally. So here are some more ratings for players if you want to take a look at these. But I'd like to know in the comments section, who are your favorite players from this franchise, and what are your favorite moments from the series? For me, it obviously starts with the first draft class and getting Nate Bell and everybody else we did, and then how that second season began. The way we were winning games, it definitely wasn't a way that you could look at and say, hey, we can continue doing this. But it was still exciting to see 4 wins to start that season, and to have them all be exciting, come from behind, crazy wins. Like the game, the 21-point fourth quarter comeback with Case Keenum replacing Nataki Mason. That was crazy. As you guys know, Nate Bell was my favorite player in this series, and one of the best draft picks I've made on this channel, along with Nataki Mason, who is the best quarterback that I've drafted. And just to find him when we did, I'm not sure where this offense would have gone if I didn't pick Nataki Mason in the middle of that draft. And keep in mind, I didn't scout him until the off-season live stream. There were other quarterbacks I was targeting, but I was spending the rest of my points, and we uncovered this gem of a prospect from Virginia. And let me see what selection he was actually taken with in that draft. Mason was the second pick in the 3rd round, so I drafted him despite having Blake Bortles and the uncertainty there at quarterback, but still hoping Bortles could pull it together. Took Mason there in that 3rd round, and that was one of the biggest picks of the series. That pick and the Nate Bell selection, perhaps the 2 biggest that'll be hard to unseat moving forward as important selections in my franchises. But I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section. What did you enjoy most about this series? Which players were your favorites? And what did you think of the Jaguars franchise overall? That is going to conclude this recap. I will have a highlight video coming for you guys soon. I have that edited up. It's not going to have every touchdown. I wanted to shorten it up a bit from there, just so that I was focusing mainly on the big plays and not just 1-yard touchdowns. I like having these highlight videos so I can go back and I can look at past seasons like I've done with my Minnesota Dynasty when I have some older highlight videos. I still recommend that season 5, I believe it was, highlight video. Really fun to watch. And I'll have that one out for you guys shortly. But thank you all for supporting this Jacksonville Jaguars franchise. I'm excited to get my new franchise underway, hopefully very soon on Madden 17. And stay tuned for that. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, comment below your feedback on the Jacksonville Jaguars franchise, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I will see you guys next time. Have a great day.